She stepped inside the grand and polished music hall, her head lowered, not out of shame, but simply because that's how she moved through most places now. Unnoticed, unacknowledged, just another face blurred in the crowd of everyday maintenance staff. Dressed in her time-worn beige uniform, she blended into the backdrop like a shadow. No one looked her way, unless they were in need of someone to ridicule, to laugh at, to feel superior to, someone to turn into a spectacle for their own amusement. But the moment they told her, mockingly, to play the piano, thinking it was just another way to get a laugh, to put her in her place, what happened next stunned everyone into silence. Not a whisper, not a breath remained in the room. And by the time her hands lifted from the Steinway's keys, the woman they'd smirked at just moments ago had become someone unforgettable. Emily Johnson moved softly between the gleaming marble pillars of the Preston Music Conservatory. The faint squeak of her old sneakers echoed against the pristine floors, a contrast so sharp against the rich, floating notes of Chopin spilling from behind practice room doors. She was 28, quiet, deliberate, and clad in the cream uniform of the cleaning crew. She wore her dark hair tied back in a modest ponytail, her movements smooth and efficient. So practiced, they almost had a rhythm of their own. 3 years she'd worked here. And for 3 years, she was nearly invisible, just like the dust she wiped from the frames of long-forgotten composers and benefactors. Most days, not a single person really saw her. Their eyes simply slid past her like watered-down glass, locking onto students, staff, anyone who seemed to belong more than she did. In the main corridor, she paused, adjusting a slightly crooked portrait of an austere, long-dead composer. Her fingers, rough from years of cleaning agents and routine labor, moved with a delicacy that would have surprised anyone had they bothered to notice. But they didn't. Not then. "Emily, can you take over the reception area today?" The foundation board's visiting. Her supervisor barked from behind a clipboard, barely glancing her way. "Yes, Mr. Collins," she answered softly and with no hesitation. As she entered the sunlit reception space, its vaulted ceiling arching like a cathedral, glass windows stretching from floor to sky, she caught sight of the Steinway Grand tucked in the far corner. That piano had graced countless concerts, fundraisers, and receptions. And for just a fleeting heartbeat, her gaze lingered, her expression shifting. Barely, but just enough. A breath of longing crossed her features like a cloud drifting over the sun. In the mirror of a polished brass fixture, she saw herself. Years ago, a teenager, wide-eyed and full of possibility, her whole future stretched before her like a blank composition waiting to be played. But life had other plans. She had chosen love over ambition. And slowly, that shining path had faded. She shook her head gently and resumed her duties. The past? It was the past. And this life she lived now, was the one she had made peace with. At least, that's what she told herself every morning. Victoria Parker strode into the reception room like a storm in heels. Each click of her stilettos echoed command. At 53, she ran the conservatory with the same fierce discipline she once brought to stages in Paris, Vienna, Milan. Her navy suit was tailored to perfection, her silver bob immaculately styled. She radiated power and polish. "Those chairs, exactly 1 inch apart," she snapped, not even looking at Emily. "Not this random, thrown-together mess." "Yes, Mrs. Parker," Emily murmured, immediately adjusting the chairs to meet the impossibly precise standard. From across the room, Samantha Reed watched, a smirk tugging at her lips. She was the conservatory's prized piano instructor. Sharp, celebrated, and terrifying. Her students won awards. Her methods were legendary and uncompromising. "Victoria, do make sure the staff use the service corridors during the event," Samantha said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Last time, I saw one of them wandering right through the Chopin competition reception." Emily flushed but said nothing, her hands steady even as her chest tightened. These small daily humiliations? They were as common as emptying trash bins or scrubbing trophy cases. Later that afternoon, as Emily polished the gleaming handrail of the grand staircase, she paused. A student, maybe 12, struggled with a piano passage behind a half-open door. Stumbling again and again over the same section, the girl's frustration was palpable. Without even realizing, Emily whispered, "Try loosening your wrists more, especially through the arpeggios." The girl turned, startled. Samantha's voice sliced through the moment like ice. "Did you just instruct my student?" I'm sorry, I didn't mean. You didn't mean to overstep your place?" Samantha's laugh was cold. "Let's not pretend your janitorial expertise gives you any insight into piano technique." Emily's eyes dropped. The door shut in her face, and she went back to polishing, her shoulders just a little more slouched. What no one noticed, what no one could see, was her fingers, subtly moving against the rail, replaying that student's piece, correcting it, perfecting it, in silence. A private performance for no one. Dignity. Victoria's tone sharpened just slightly, though her posture remained flawless. "Then it settled," she said, pivoting back toward Emily with a smile that held all the warmth of polished glass. "You'll play tonight. One piece. Liszt." A beat of silence followed before Emily, heart pounding, found her voice. "And what if I say no?" The question was barely above a whisper, but it carried the force of thunder. Even Emily was startled by her own audacity. She hadn't planned to challenge anyone, hadn't planned on being seen, much less heard. Victoria's smile didn't falter, but it grew colder, calculated. Her words were soft, smooth, cutting. "Well, in that case," she said, pausing as if to offer Emily a moment of grace before the guillotine, "we may need to reevaluate whether your position here is still necessary. Budget cuts, you know how it is." And there it was. The choice. It wasn't just about playing piano. It never was. It was about dignity, identity, reclaiming something long buried beneath dust and silence. It was about facing a room full of people who never once believed she was more than a uniform and daring to show them the truth. Sparkles were so close to reaching 1,000 subscribers. If Emily's story moves you, help us cross that milestone today. Hit that subscribe button to join our community of storytellers and never miss a story of unexpected courage and triumph. Speech Balloon's Sparkling Heart. Now, let's watch as Emily steps into her moment of truth. The grand hall had never looked more radiant. Gilded sconces bathed the walls in golden light, while towering chandeliers scattered crystals of color across the marble floors. The conservatory's wealthiest benefactors sipped champagne from flutes thinner than glass, their tailored suits and glittering gowns whispering wealth and legacy. Backstage, behind thick velvet curtains, Emily stood alone. No elegant gown, no concert-ready posture, just her same beige uniform, slightly wrinkled from a day of work, and a small name tag reading Emily J., like a brand that marked her as different, lesser, other. She could hear her heart over the soft murmur of the crowd. Then Victoria stepped onto the stage with practiced elegance, her heels announcing every step, her voice ringing through the microphone like silk-wrapped ice. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her smile as polished as the floor beneath her. "We have a small update to tonight's program. Our featured pianist experienced a sudden medical emergency and is sadly unable to perform." A ripple of concerned murmurs passed through the crowd. "But," she added, her tone shifting to something performative, "in the spirit of community engagement and showcasing the hidden talents within our institution, we offer a special alternative." The words "special" and "alternative" hung in the air like perfume masking rot. She continued, "One of our maintenance staff has kindly volunteered to remind us that music lives in all of us, regardless of background or formal training." Scattered polite chuckles drifted through the audience. A few people exchanged amused glances. Others raised perfectly arched brows. And then, Emily stepped into the light. The spotlight hit her uniform like a searchlight. Her sneakers scuffed against the hardwood stage. Laughter, soft, restrained, bubbled in the back rows. She walked to the piano with the steady quiet of someone walking toward a cliff's edge. Behind the curtain, Samantha stood with her arms crossed, a smug smile on her face that said, "I win," even before a single note had been played. Emily sat at the bench. The Steinway Grand gleamed beneath the lights, its every surface pristine, waiting. She stared at the keys for a breath, then at another. 15 years ago, she played with no audience but dust motes and shadows. Now, every eye in the room watched her, waiting for failure, expecting it. In the front row, Richard Taylor leaned to his companion and whispered with amusement, "Well, at the very least, this'll be entertaining." Emily's hands hovered above the keys, trembling just slightly. She closed her eyes, and in that moment, the laughter faded, the faces vanished. All that remained was memory. She was a girl again, sitting beside her grandmother in a tiny living room, the air smelling of tea and old music sheets. Her grandmother's hands, crooked with age and arthritis, still played with aching beauty. Music, her grandmother once said, voice soft like falling snow, isn't about what the world sees. It's about what's left when the world disappears. Emily inhaled, and then her fingers touched the keys. The opening of Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2 spilled into the air, not hesitant, not flawed, but strong, rich, bold. Not the sound of someone trying to prove themselves, but someone remembering who they had always been. The murmurs died. The smirks froze. Silence. Not a single cough. Not a whisper. Not a breath. 200 patrons, frozen in time, as her hands danced across the keys, commanding, delicate, fiery. The music poured out of her like truth held back too long. Every run, every trill, every crescendo told a story she had never spoken aloud.